is one of the most common ways attackers reach people, not because email is always weak, but because humans are busy and trust is easy to exploit when messages look normal. For beginners, email attacks can feel confusing because many of them look similar at first glance, and under pressure you might treat every suspicious message the same. The problem is that different email attacks have different goals and different risks, so the safest response depends on what type of attack you are dealing with. Differentiating email attacks fast is about recognizing patterns quickly, so you can contain the right risk without wasting time or leaking sensitive information. In this episode, we focus on 4 important categories: phishing, business email compromise, BEC, malware delivery, and impersonation. After that first mention, BEC will be the short way we refer to that specific category. The goal is not to turn you into a forensic analyst. The goal is to give you a simple mental model that helps you see what the attacker is trying to accomplish and what the attack is likely to do next. Start with the biggest concept that connects all these attacks. They are social engineering delivered through a trusted channel. Social engineering means manipulating human behavior to achieve a goal, such as getting someone to reveal credentials, send money, install something, or share sensitive information. Email is a trusted channel because it is woven into everyday work, and people are trained to respond quickly to messages that appear to come from bosses, vendors, or support teams. Most email attacks create urgency, uncertainty, or authority pressure because those emotions reduce careful thinking. Another common feature is plausibility, meaning the message uses familiar language, familiar logos, and realistic context to reduce suspicion. For beginners, it helps to remember that the technical part of email attacks is often simple, but the psychological part is carefully designed. Differentiating the attack is mostly about identifying the goal and the method, not about spotting every tiny clue in headers. When you can see the goal clearly, you can choose a safer response faster. Phishing is a broad category where the attacker tries to trick you into giving something up, usually credentials, personal data, or access. Classic phishing often uses links to fake login pages or requests for verification information. The message might claim that your account will be locked, that you need to confirm a payment, or that a security alert requires immediate action. The key feature of phishing is that it is usually designed for scale, meaning the attacker can send it to many people and hope a few respond. Phishing messages often have generic elements, but modern phishing can be personalized enough to feel convincing. The attacker's goal is often to capture a password or to push you into a workflow where you hand over sensitive information. For beginners, a fast way to differentiate phishing is to ask whether the message is trying to move you to a different destination, like a link, a form, or a login page, and whether it asks you to act quickly. When the message is trying to harvest a credential or sensitive detail, phishing is a strong possibility. BEC is related to phishing but has a different focus, and the difference matters for response. In BEC, the attacker's primary goal is usually financial gain through manipulation of business processes, such as persuading someone to send money, change payment details, or approve a fraudulent transaction. BEC often involves compromise or spoofing of a real business email account, which makes the message look more legitimate. The message may not include a link or an attachment at all, because the attacker wants to keep the interaction conversational. Common BEC themes include invoice fraud, payment rerouting, gift card requests, and urgent approvals that bypass normal procedures. A key feature is that the attacker tries to steer you away from verification, like asking you not to call or to keep it confidential. For beginners, a fast differentiator is to ask whether the message is requesting a financial action or a change to a financial workflow, and whether it uses authority pressure like pretending to be an executive or a vendor contact. BEC is dangerous because a single successful message can cause immediate, irreversible harm. Malware delivery by email is when the message is designed to get you to run something or open something that infects your system. This can happen through attachments, links that lead to downloads, or embedded content that triggers unsafe behavior. The attacker's goal is not only to steal a credential or money directly, but to gain persistent access, steal data, or disrupt operations through malicious software. Malware delivery messages often use themes like urgent documents, shipping notices, resumes, or invoices, because those themes create a believable reason to open a file. The message may also imitate internal workflows, like saying a shared document is waiting, because people are used to collaboration tools. For beginners, the key differentiator is that malware delivery pushes you toward opening an attachment or enabling an action that runs code, even if you do not see it as code. It might be a file that asks you to enable editing or to allow a feature that seems harmless. When the message's path involves executing content on your device, you should assume malware delivery risk. Impersonation is a slightly broader concept that can overlap with both phishing and BEC, but it is worth separating because it focuses on identity deception rather than on a specific payload. In impersonation, the attacker pretends to be someone else, such as a coworker, a manager, a vendor, or a support person, and uses that false identity to influence your behavior. Impersonation can be done with a lookalike address, a display name trick, or a compromised account, and it can target many goals, including credential harvesting, financial fraud, or data access. What makes impersonation distinct is that the core attack is trust theft, where the attacker borrows the credibility of a known identity. For beginners, the fast differentiator is to ask whether the message's persuasive power depends mainly on who it appears to be from, rather than on what evidence it provides. If the message is basically saying, "Do this because I am your boss," "Do this because I am the vendor," or "Do this because I am support," then impersonation is central. Recognizing impersonation quickly helps you choose verification steps that do not depend on email itself. Although these categories are distinct, real attacks often blend them, which is why beginners need a mental model rather than rigid labels. A message can be both phishing and impersonation if it pretends to be a coworker and asks you to log in. A message can be both BEC and impersonation if it pretends to be a vendor and requests a payment change. A message can be both phishing and malware delivery if it uses a link that leads to a fake login page and also triggers a download. The point of differentiation is not to win a taxonomy argument. The point is to identify the dominant risk so you can respond safely. If the dominant risk is credential theft, you focus on protecting accounts and warning others about credential harvesting patterns. If the dominant risk is financial fraud, you focus on verification of payment processes and limiting the ability to change financial instructions without out-of-band confirmation. If the dominant risk is malware, you focus on isolating affected systems and preventing execution pathways. This is why fast differentiation matters. It directs the first actions in a way that reduces harm. Beginners often rely on superficial cues like poor grammar or strange formatting, but those cues are no longer reliable. Many attackers write clean messages and use realistic branding. A better approach is to look for behavioral cues like urgency, secrecy, pressure to bypass normal processes, and unusual requests that do not match the sender's typical behavior. Another cue is the request path, meaning what the message wants you to do next. Phishing often wants you to click and log in. BEC often wants you to approve or send money. Malware delivery often wants you to open or run something, and impersonation often wants you to trust identity without verification. Another cue is the verification resistance, where the message discourages you from confirming through a trusted channel. Attackers do not want you to verify because verification breaks the illusion. For beginners, training yourself to notice these cues is more useful than trying to memorize every possible email trick. The cues reflect attacker goals, and goals tend to remain stable even as tactics change. Differentiation is also about understanding likely impact, because the same message can have different consequences depending on what it succeeds at. Credential phishing can lead to account takeover and broader access if the compromised account has high privilege. BEC can lead to immediate financial loss and often triggers legal and customer issues. Malware delivery can lead to data theft, service disruption, or long-term persistence that is hard to remove. Impersonation can lead to data leakage, process abuse, and cascading trust breakdown, especially if the impersonated identity is in a position of authority. Thinking about impact helps you prioritize the urgency of response. For example, a likely BEC attempt targeting payment instructions can require immediate process checks because money can move fast, while a generic phishing message might be handled through blocking and awareness measures. Malware delivery risk may require immediate caution because opening the attachment could infect multiple systems quickly. For beginners, this impact thinking helps you avoid treating everything as equal and helps you choose appropriate escalation paths. Finally, differentiating email attacks fast is also about protecting communication itself, because in an incident you do not want to spread sensitive details or create confusion. If someone reports a suspicious email, the response should avoid forwarding it widely in uncontrolled ways, because forwarding can spread malicious links or attachments. A safer pattern is to capture the information needed to assess and to route it through controlled incident channels. This discipline connects back to stakeholder communication and to evidence handling, because email artifacts can be evidence. Even at a beginner level, you can recognize that the way you handle the email matters, not just the content. If you treat every suspicious message as harmless and casually share it, you can accidentally increase exposure. If you treat every suspicious message as catastrophic and announce it dramatically, you can create panic and disrupt operations. The goal is calm, disciplined handling guided by correct differentiation. When you know what kind of attack it most likely is, you can communicate and act in a way that reduces risk. To bring it all together, phishing, BEC, malware delivery, and impersonation are different categories of email attack that share a common feature. They exploit trust and human behavior through a familiar channel. Phishing typically aims to harvest credentials or sensitive information. BEC typically aims to manipulate business processes for financial gain. Malware delivery aims to get malicious content executed on a system, and impersonation aims to steal credibility by pretending to be a trusted identity. Real attacks can blend these categories, so the skill is to identify the dominant goal and dominant risk quickly. Behavioral cues like urgency, secrecy, process bypass pressure, and resistance to verification are often more reliable than superficial cues like spelling errors. When you can differentiate these attacks fast, you can choose safer early actions, escalate appropriately, and reduce harm. This is not about memorizing tricks. It is about recognizing goals, predicting likely next steps, and responding with disciplined caution. With practice, you will start to see email attacks not as random scary messages, but as predictable patterns that you can identify and handle calmly under pressure.
Thanks for listening. For more audio courses, daily newsletters, and more, please visit baremetalcyber.com.